So StoryCorps, I'm really glad you brought up doing this one because I think this is an incredibly important uh, thing that they're doing here with StoryCorps, trying to preserve some oral history.
Yeah, there is so much beauty in modern humanity that to try and preserve it in such a way is just not only important but just so lovely also.
Yeah, it's. I listened to some of these interviews, and it was really fascinating. One that got me was a high school kid who was a part of a white supremacist group, and an African American. I believe he was a custodian in school, and how the custodian helped transform him and change him, and now he works to get people out of hate groups.
Yeah.
Um, and they met, 20 years later and discussed their time together. It's just
That's
really powerful.
that is so powerful. One of my favorite ones I watched was a little bit more lighthearted than that, and her name was Wally. Oh, I forget. It was I applied to NASA 4 times.
Oh, okay, yeah, I saw that.
Um, and just like the what her journey and what she went through, and like the fact that she was probably one of the most qualified people to be an astronaut during her time, but just being female meant that it was scrapped, and she's getting a lot older, and she bought a ticket on the first Virgin Galactic
Ah,
flight. So
nice.
she's just
Yeah.
and I love the fact that there's so much grit there that like she wasn't able to become an astronaut through NASA, so she's gonna go just however possible.
Oh, that's pretty great.
And she was really funny too. So her story was fun.
Yeah, and I love the idea of interviewing
Hmm.
people, doing it as interviews with someone um, which makes it more real instead of being interviewed by, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. Because like in Wally's story, she the woman interviewing her was her student, not a student, but Wally was a mentor to her. And at one point she says, like, you don't even know this, but this one thing you did might have saved my life. And it was
Oh,
just like
wow.
thing that you did. And so that's a moment that we got to share in that interview. And it was super fun.
Ah, that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, very important. And so when I honestly going through this site, reading everything, I got stuck on the Discover page because I found it, um, I just love the idea um, that they have broken it down into different areas, like the StoryCorps Legacy, um, which provides people of all ages with serious illness and their families an opportunity to record and share their stories. Um, and they partner with hospitals and clinics. I don't know. I think that's really powerful.
That is so powerful. And it could be really cathartic for families that are going through loss. Um, to just take some time and just record someone's story or just record whatever they want to say. There's so when people are in advanced stages of serious illnesses, it just so much gets lost in
Right.
chemo appointments and bad days where you can't get out of bed,
Mhm.
that there isn't a lot of time spent to just just talk. Because when you are feeling good, I think that people, you try to um my husband's family is going through this right now. You try to like be out and doing all of this fun stuff that
Right.
may not have. And so one thing that my husband says with his dad, who's not feeling well, is he's like, my God, I just want to like hang out with him. Like I just want to like talk to him. So I'm going to share this with him for sure. I think that's something he's really going to like.
Yeah, I think that's great. And there's multiple ones. This Project, um, which documents experiences of youth of color in juvenile and adult justice system,
Mm-hmm.
um, in jails, is got to be really powerful. You get to tell their story, and um, and how they've been impacted. And I don't know.
And put another lens on the story. I feel like one of the reasons why shows like Orange is the New Black are so popular, one, it's like a really well made show, but it adds a lens of humanity to the incarcerated population, which honestly, they don't get a lot of humanity after they're incarcerated. So
Right.
to kind of shed another voice to what our justice system looks like is always a good thing.
Absolutely. Yeah, and there's multiple ones here. The September 11th initiative, I thought that was really important to
Mm-hmm.
record each of the lives lost. Yeah. Um, the one I obviously went right to and got stuck in was the education one, um, which I thought was really powerful. And I started looking into it, as a teacher, what can I do? They have tons of resources. I mean, this website just does a ton to help uh, engineer this
Mm-hmm.
storytelling and getting voices out. And I started looking in here, but then I saw this great Thanksgiving listen. And what this is they want to empower high schoolers to create an oral history of contemporary United States by interviewing their elders. And I immediately thought, okay, my daughter needs to do this. I think I'd love her to interview, either my mother or father or both. Um, and they write up the questions and they get to just talk. And I don't think they've really had a lot of a chance to do that.
Mm-hmm.
We don't live in the same city. Every time we go to holidays, everything's rushed. And if they could just take 30 minutes and just talk, if she has questions about their lives. Um, I've been trying to find a way to do that. So I thought that was very powerful.
That is, and she's going to learn just so much incredible stuff about them. I think
Yeah, I
like
hope.
my grandparents, they had the coolest lives, and I never knew it until like it came up because we never sat down and talked like this.
Right.
And so it came up just like in passing, just these really cool experiences they had. So I would have loved to have something like this while I was in high school.
Yeah, and personally, I'd love to have something like this on my own. I might do this myself,
Yeah,
with my parents because I haven't, again, in passing. I've gotten a lot of stories, but I haven't even touched the surface of their lives,
yeah, yeah.
what they've experienced in their lives. And I'd love to know more.
And all that stuff. I think we only see like the snippets of like I moved here and then I worked for this company and then I moved here and then and
Right.
none of like the real humanness in those stories.
Yeah, if you can get some good questions, and this website gives you tons of practice in writing questions and asking questions, and I don't know, it's pretty fantastic.
Yeah,
Plus, in terms of a class, right here for the teachers, they give you lessons on having your students do these kinds of things.
yeah. So this one reminded me of when I used to teach at a school in Aurora Public Schools, and the eighth grade teacher at that school did a segment called Humans of Aurora. And as far as I know, she's still doing it with her students.
Okay.
It's based on Humans of New York.
Yeah, yeah.
And they would just go out and interview strangers on the streets. And it created a Facebook page of a nice photo and a snippet of what they said, just like Humans of New York. And it was so powerful for students. Just go out there and it's a little different than this because they were recording stories of just total strangers on the street. But just to engage in their community in such a way was just awesome, super cool. So that reminded me a lot of Humans of Aurora that teachers do in our community.
I don't know. I suppose it could be used for that. I did download the app already in hopes to interview some people.
Mm-hmm.
Did you find any under Discover that you?
Yeah, so the memory loss section, if we want to go to that one really struck me because it's something my family's going through right now. My grandmother has significant memory loss and advanced dementia. And so I've gone through, kind of the loss of that person, that family member, along with my family. And the notion that StoryCorps is being proactive about recording these stories
Yeah.
and letting them kind of live outside of that person's brain. It's almost like having an external hard drive for your brain, that they can have this part of their life somewhere outside of themselves, so that when they go back in, or when they go back to look at it, they can kind of remember that part of themselves.
Right.
My dad, I know he would have loved to have this. It's his mom, because he will tell her stories often, and she doesn't believe him.
Hmm.
And I know that, sometimes, at least for her brain, with dementia came a little bit of paranoia. And so she'll think he's lying to her. And we have a really funny family.
Yeah.
Our family had a lot of just really like goofy, ridiculous memories, and stuff got broken all the time and things like that. And she would just like, I watched her be like, "Oh, that didn't happen. You are lying to me. That's ridiculous. You would have never done that. That's so silly." And so just to have had, like a podcast or a recording on the app or anything like that, or a video of her talking about that, could be, it could be a really, really cool moment. And she's definitely not at the point that we can't have those conversations yet. So I really look forward to sharing this with my family, so that we can start to record some more of her life, so that she can look back on it later on. It's just, and I think that also, that one, like, "What's your life like now, Dad?" She lives she's almost a completely different person some days. She
Right.
lives a completely different life. And I think that we spend so much time bemoaning the woman that we're losing, that
Right.
we're forgetting the woman that we're getting.
Yeah.
And she deserves to be celebrated in her own right, in this like person that she's changing into. It's like she's morphing into this second stage of life. And so to preserve her as she was and celebrate her as she is something I think that StoryCorps is aiming to do with this initiative.
It's
And
great.
how amazing.
It is. Yeah, and to kind of finish, I was going to start here, but thought I'd finish here. I just, if it'll show up. Um, their mission really spoke to me. I got a little emotional, quite honestly, with this whole thing
Me
because it's
too.
so powerful, and they're doing so much for capturing stories, and oral history. But the mission to preserve and share humanity's stories in order to build connections between people and create a more just and compassionate world. Um, I think that speaks a lot when when you have the justice section, and you get to hear from people who are incarcerated and hear their stories, and they can become more human, instead of just people in jail that you can forget about because they're there.
Yeah, like lock them up and throw them away. I think the same way with the elderly in our
Right.
community.
Right.
Um, Americans have kind of a bad habit of just kind of locking up our elderly and like visiting them once a week or whatever.
Right.
And this allows us to continue to celebrate their stories.
I agree. And a big one for me, which I think is important now in the age of digital speediness, to strengthen and build the connections between people to teach the value of listening. And I thought that was very important because most people today, with all the apps, they're speaking, they're not listening, right? The conversations are difficult because they're very one way, I believe. Um, so I just found that really important.
I um I was talking to my mom this past weekend, and she was talking for a while, and then I said something, and she was like, "That was completely off topic."
Oh,
Like she was like, we talked about that like 5 minutes ago. Were you just rehearsing in your head over and over what you were gonna say until you got a chance to speak, and then now you said it, and we completely moved on? And I was like, yeah, I think that's exactly what I was doing. Oh my gosh, because I was listening to respond, not listening to hear. And but she called me out on it, and so I think that listening to other people's stories and just listening is valuable even for me as like a human adult. I forget to listen sometimes.
and if it takes a recording device to do that, I guess so be it.
So
Yeah, so I don't know. I find it very powerful. I'm going to go much deeper into this website. There's a lot there. And I want to look at the lessons and see how I can use it in my life and in my classroom for sure.
Yeah. And I think it has a lot of, I just looking like from a logistical planning perspective, I already see it, at least having a space like in a personal narrative unit. I think that's where you can
Yes.
integrate some of this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mhm.
Well, great. All
Yeah.
right. Yeah. Any other thoughts, comments?
Um, when I get asked all the time, and I'm sure you probably do too, like, why are you pursuing a graduate degree in English? Why are you an English teacher? Why did you choose this? One of the things I say most often is that stories, they just matter. People's stories and stories of cultures and groups, they just matter to the world. And if I can help other people hear those stories, then I feel like my life's work is worth doing.
Yeah.
And these guys are just bringing that to the masses in such a impactful way.
Yeah. And to preserve it. I think it's so important to preserve it.
Hmm.
In this day and age of like millions and millions of bits of information flying around, to preserve it in one spot where people are just slowing down and talking is, I think, incredibly important today. So yeah, I'm very excited I got to look through this website more
Yeah, me
and
too.
talk about it. So
I'm with
yeah.
you. I think the Discover page is definitely my favorite part of it.
Yes, very powerful. Okay, well, great. It was great talking to you.
Yeah, it's good to talk to you too.
Yeah. And so I'm going to stop the recording. Go
Okay.
visit StoryCorps.
Yes, do it.